Alright, Steve here again, Guitar at Day Volume 2. So, what I have hanging around my neck again today is a 1974, I think, Ibanez Futura, which is a copy of a guitar that never existed, the Gibson Moderne. Now, the history of the Moderne is clouded in all sorts of mystery, half-truths, half-remembered stories, tales of prototypes that end up being sawn in half and thrown in skips, etc. What we do know is this, that when Gibson patented the body styles for its futuristic guitars in 1957-58, the Flying V, the Futura, the Explorer and the Moderne was patented as a line drawing. And way back in the dawn of time, I read a book by a guy called Donald Brosnack called The Guitarist's Music History and Construction, and it contained a copy of that patent application which had the Moderne body shape on it. So when I was 18 years old and I was wandering through Kitchen's Music in Leeds, in Yorkshire, in the UK, and I saw this thing hanging on the wall, I knew immediately what it was a copy of. And as they had it at half price, and I'd got £150 burning a hole in my pocket, as I was on my first ever factory job, in between school and university, I bought it, and I walked out the shop with it, and I've had it ever since. So, it's a copy of a Moderne. Actually, if you dig a bit closer, if you search around on the net, you will see that there was a guitar that George Grun had his hands on in the late 60s, which is supposed to be a Moderne prototype. And it looks very, very similar to this instrument. Now, that particular example is rumoured to have been sold to a Japanese collector, which would explain why the guys at Ibanez managed to get their hands on it and duplicate it. So it's got exactly the same scratch plate, the same undersized, almost undersized Les Paul, almost Melody Maker sized headstock. If you look on the reproductions that Gibson have made, the headstock is completely different. It's not this headstock, not this Les Paul style at all. So as to this particular guitar itself, well, this is completely original, apart from the jack socket. The original jack socket plate was plastic and it cracked. So many years ago, I got hold of a replacement Les Paul one, straightened it out with a pair of pliers, and screwed it in place. The neck is maple, 3-piece maple, with the standard Ibanez trick of reversing the grain of the centre piece to give it additional strength. And I've got to say that appears to work, because this guitar has fallen over backwards and landed on the end of the headstock at least twice and just bounced. Rosewood board, jumbo frets, bone nut, standard Ibanez style gold star or black star machine heads, Ibanez Super 70 pickups, 2 humbuckers, bridge and tailpiece. It probably doesn't show up too well on the video, but the tailpiece is actually distorted over the years from the constant pull of the strings, so it's actually bowing forward slightly, although the bridge isn't collapsing. The body is a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. It's made out of at least 4 pieces of wood, so it's actually a sandwich, 2 pieces front and back, 2 pieces side to side. Wasn't that useful if my strap falls off. They say it's got a fair bit of wear and tear and hammer on it. If I'd known how rare and valuable this guitar actually was, I wouldn't have beaten it to death through gigs through the 80s and 90s. So what does it sound like? Well, if I go for the bridge humbucker, again through the Cheery Tone OTS 20 Mini. You hear it's got quite a Les Pauly voice. Although I suppose it's also in flying V territory. There's both pickups together. There's the bridge pickup. We'll give it a bit of crunch. Onto the neck pickup. I have only ever seen one other example of this guitar in the flesh, and that was at an infamous Manchester second-hand store come fence called Johnny Roadhouse back in about 1990. A friend of mine in Jakarta actually does own one of these. He also owns one of the matching Flying V and Explorer, and I've been trying to get those off him for years. He's been trying to get this off me for years. It's a Mexican standoff. The finish of this guitar is quite unusual because they've actually tinted the finish to make the ash, again it's probably senwood, a bit like the Kimbara I showed you yesterday, to make the very white ash type body look like Carina. And again the neck is stained the same way around the back. You can see there's quite a lot of wear on the back of this guitar. I used to wear belt buckles back when I didn't know better. So, there we have it. Why do I think this guitar's a 1974? Final question. Well, it doesn't have a serial number. If you look at the documentation of these guitars, the serial number was actually engraved into the fingerboard somewhere up near the 22nd fret. This guitar doesn't have one, which leads me to believe that it's from very early in the production run. Also, the other guitar which I saw in Manchester all those years ago had a black scratch plate, whereas this one's obviously white. So, there we have it. 1974, probably Ibanez Futura, which I've owned since 1978. Cheers!